To order. Good evening and welcome everyone to the June 21, 2023 meeting of the Westwood Select Board. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, on March 29, 2023, Governor Maura Healey signed into law an act making appropriations for the fiscal year 2023 to provide for supplementing certain existing appropriations and for certain other activities and projects. This act includes an extension until March 31, 2025 of the remote meeting provisions. This June 21, 2023 Select Board meeting will be conducted via remote participation by the board. I hereby grant permission to Westwood Media Center to record the meeting. Is there anyone else who wishes to record the meeting? I see no affirmative responses. So with that, I will move into the chair's update briefly. First, in terms of an update on the fire union, since our last meeting, we have made further progress in our negotiations. And while we had hoped we could report tonight a resolution that is still actively in process, in the meantime, the fire operational study has been received and was posted last week on the town website. So we encourage you to look at that. The consultant on that study is unavailable for tonight's meeting. So we will have him at our next meeting on July 12th to discuss that report in conjunction with the feasibility study that has been performed with respect to Fire Station 1. Now, while we know some residents are anxious to discuss the operational study, the board does want to have a full presentation on it with the opportunity to ask questions before we have a full discussion on it. Moving on, we have an update on Summer Paving, which is estimated to start after July 4th and will include Clapper Tree Street, Coach Lane, and Meadowbrook Road. Detours will be set up accordingly, and message boards will be set up in advance to provide more information. In addition, the paving schedule and any pertinent information will be posted on the DPW webpage on the town website. And with respect to Dedham Westwood Water, we have voluntary water restrictions in place. Dedham Westwood Water District has implemented Stage 1 voluntary water restrictions. Stage 1 requests that the public refrain voluntarily from non-essential outdoor watering, including watering lawns or other vegetation, washing vehicles, unnecessary washing down of driveways and sidewalks, and other uses of water hoses, and to conserve water from affected public water supplies in all other practicable ways. Dedham is requested to water on Mondays and Thursdays, and Westwood on Tuesdays and Fridays. Voluntary water restrictions are being implemented in accordance with the district's water conservation plan. With that ends my update. I will turn it over to Chris for the town administrator's report. Chris.
Thank you, Marianne. I would like to start with the School Street Playground. I've been providing updates at the last few select board meetings, and just to let you know, the work has been completed. It is open, it is inspected, it is power washed, it's ready for you, it's ready for use. It looks fabulous. If you haven't had an opportunity to drive by, I would strongly encourage you to drive by. There are some small minor punch list items that we're going to try to get done next week, but that can be done without closing the playground. So we're very excited. The work of the Recreation Department. And this is also an example of collaboration with the Commission on Disabilities. Commission on Disabilities members went before Rich Adams, our Recreation Director, identified some things that they would like to see. Rich had a plan in place with the work with the Commission on Disabilities. We were able to come up with this very much improved and accessible playground. So very proud of the work that our Recreation Department has done, and also, again, in collaboration with the Commission on Disabilities.
Chris, I went down and walked it on Saturday morning. I thought it looked fantastic. Nice job.
I will certainly pass that on to the team. Thank you. Just a little update. There's been some, I just want to make sure that the board's aware of our ARPA funds and what we have. For those of you who may not be familiar with ARPA, that is the American Rescue Plan Act. And the town receives, we received directly from the Commonwealth an amount of 1.716, let me say it this way, $1,716,564. We received a total of $3,089,942 from the Norfolk County. However, the Norfolk County money is split under what they call restricted and revenue loss. A majority of that money is under restricted, and there are certain categories that are eligible for funding through that. Under that restricted amount, Norfolk County is allocated $2,567,249 for restricted and $522,693 under revenue loss. The prior boards, Joe, have authorized 4 projects to use of the ARPA funds thus far. And what the board has decided to do then is to use the funds for one-time costs. So the prior board, Joe, approved 4 projects. One is the Hanlon Deerfield project on the HVAC. That was for $1.1 million. The library HVAC, which was $100,000. Social services increase to address program capacity. That was $150,000. And what we just talked about, the school street playground improvement and disabilities access, which was for $190,000. So we had $190,000 that the board authorized from ARPA for the school street playground. We also had $60,000 from our capital projects, capital requests and approval from town meeting. The total amount of projects that have been approved under the restricted category is $1,540,000, leaving us approximately a balance of $1,027,249. We have not used any funds from the revenue loss as of yet. We do have a few other items that we would like to discuss with the board at a future meeting regarding the ARPA funds. And just to be clear, we have to commit the funds by December of 24, if I'm not mistaken, Molly. Commit meaning having a contract, and it has to be spent, I want to say by, I think it's April, but I'll double check on that. But we have to definitely commit the funds by December of 24. It would certainly be in our best interest to fully expend the funds by December of 24, just to make sure that we don't miss any timelines from that standpoint. But the restricted categories include infrastructures like water and sewer, broadband, housing, and things of that nature. Like I said, Joe, the prior board decided to use these funds for one-time expenses and try to spread them out throughout the town. I can certainly sit down and have a more in-depth conversation with you, Joe, if you'd like, or any board member if you'd like, for that matter.
Yeah, that would be great, Chris. I know the MMA thing that I attended, they spent quite a bit of time on that. So
yes,
thank you for that succinct explanation. But maybe later down the road we can chat.
Okay. Another update I just want to share with the board is we received a letter from the interim Norwood Fire Chief. It's a short letter, so if you wouldn't mind, I'd just like to read it. It's dated June 12th. Chief Decker's forwarded this over to me. It says, "Dear Chiefs and Managers, the Norwood Fire Department would like to extend its sincere thanks and appreciation for all of you and all of your members for the tremendous support you provided the Norwood Fire Department on June 10th, 3-alarm warehouse fire at 675 Canton Street, Norwood. The nearly 330,000 square foot warehouse presented us with challenges, and we could not have had such a successful firefighting effort without the great team effort of personnel. Again, giant thank you to everyone. Please take care and stay safe." For those of you who may not be aware, Westwood was one of the mutual aid communities that responded. And to no surprise, the team members did a great job assisting Norwood in that situation. Just one of many mutual aid efforts that our fire department and police officers do. Sticking with public safety, I had the pleasure today of being present for the police department receiving their accreditation. The accreditation is from the Massachusetts Police Accreditation Program. It really has 2 categories: the establishment of a body of professional standards for police agencies and a volunteer assessment process by which agencies can publicly be recognized for meeting those standards. This is not an easy process. There's a lot of things that need to go into it. One of the factors is also the new facility. So the facility is also part of that accreditation process. But more importantly, it's the team members within the police department, the policies, the leadership, and the leadership that all our officers show. So it was a pleasure to be present for that award. And I'm certainly going to be speaking with Chief Silva to have him come before you, possibly even at your June 12th meeting, or July 12th meeting, excuse me, so he can share that with everyone.
That would be great, Chris.
And that is all I have for my updates.
Terrific. Thank you, Chris. Pursuant to our agenda, the board will now be going into executive session to discuss one issue pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for union personnel, specifically the Westwood Permanent Firefighters Association Local 1994 IAFF, discussion of which would have a detrimental effect on the position of the governing body if the discussion were in open session. The board will be returning to open session. We estimate that will be at around 6:20. It could be a couple minutes before or a couple minutes after. With that, I will entertain a motion.
I move we go into executive session for the aforementioned reason.
I'll second the motion.
Right. Roll call, Joe?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. We will now adjourn to executive session. Thank you. Well, good evening once again, everyone. We are going to head into our scheduled action, beginning with a restriction agreement and release pertaining to the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. With us is our special counsel, Dan Bailey. Welcome, Dan.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. Happy to be here.
Happy to see you. Would you like to take us through this, please?
You bet. And at the expense of maybe being a little repetitive, if you'll indulge me, I know you have a new member, and knowing that new member, I know he will want to know a little bit of the background. So this is a restriction agreement and release that relates to the development agreement for University Avenue, which we did 10 years ago or so. And when we did that development agreement, one of the things that the select board was concerned with at the time was putting a lot of time, effort, and town resources into a project that was intended to produce tax revenue for the town. So one concern we had, which has proven to be a legitimate concern, is that given the proliferance of the meds and eds in this area, some tax exempt organizations may become interested in purchasing property at University Avenue. So what we did when we negotiated the original development agreement is we said that we put in place a restriction that says that the developer, New England Development, and its entities cannot sell to a not-for-profit without first coming to the town and entering into a payment in lieu of taxes agreement. We did this 6, 7, 8 years ago with Brigham, and they have a facility down there, and we have an existing payment in lieu of taxes agreement, and we have negotiated the same with Dana-Farber. That payment in lieu of taxes agreement, which we've titled a community services agreement, was approved on March 28th by the board, and now we are just implementing certain elements of it. What we're doing right now is the closing, where Dana-Farber will purchase the property from New England Development, is set for this coming Friday. In order to go through with the closing, we have to do a couple of things. One is that we need to amend the existing restriction, which prohibits a tax exempt entity from purchasing property at University Avenue. That's what the agreement that is in front of you and that I'm asking you to sign tonight does. So it releases Dana Farber from that prohibition, but at the same time, it reinstates the prohibition so that if Dana Farber were to sell to a not-for-profit entity, that not-for-profit entity would similarly have to come to the board and negotiate a payment in lieu of taxes agreement. So it's a little bit of legal semantics where we release one restriction and then we impose a new one, but it's all quite protective of the town. The form of the agreement of the restriction release and agreement was attached to the agreement that the board approved back in March. There are no material changes. I mean, I think the only real change I had to it was put a date on it. So I'm here tonight to ask the board to approve that agreement. The other thing that I need from the board, because there's a closing on Friday, is for 2 members of the board to go to town hall tomorrow and see Tish and sign the agreement and have her notarize it. It's going to be a recorded document, so it needs to be notarized. I will then pick it up, bring it into Boston and deliver it to the title insurance company to hold in escrow until the closing on Friday. And that's it in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dan. Questions from the board?
No,
Thanks, Dan.
Well, if there are no questions, as Dan said, this is quite straightforward in keeping with our prior discussion on this issue. As there are no questions, I will entertain a motion.
Okay, I move that the select board approve the restriction agreement and release, and that we authorize special town counsel to deliver it to counsel for Dana Farber.
I'll second that motion.
Roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. As a housekeeping matter, Dan, I can go to town hall tomorrow morning to sign. Joe and Rob are one.
Oh, yeah, I'll be there before I head into work. So
terrific. So you'll have that. Should have that ready to go, Dan, tomorrow morning.
Okay, Tish, I'll probably be by sometime around 10.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, I will have another document you need to notarize because I have to sign an affidavit. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Moving on our agenda, we are tabling the item with respect to a regulatory agreement for an affordable housing unit. So we will move on to consider the designation of a designee for the right to purchase a unit at 130 University Ave. And with us, we have Nora Loughnane, our Director of Community and Economic Development. Welcome, Nora.
Thank you. We also have Lou Rizzoli, if you could bring him over.
Yes, I just brought Lou in, Amanda in, and Jane O'Donnell will be next.
Terrific. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you. So what we have is a notice of impending sale for one of the affordable condominium units at University Station. This is unit 1205 at 130 University Avenue. And we received a conveyance notice from the property owner on June 1st. That gives a period of 90 days for the sale of the condo unit to an eligible purchaser or to the municipality or to the municipality's designee. So we're before the board tonight so that you can consider whether or not the town wants to purchase the affordable unit, wants to designate someone else to purchase the unit, or wants to allow the unit to be marketed to potential eligible purchasers.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I say a word?
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Rizzoli.
Good evening. Good evening, all. So we kind of discussed this at our last WAHA meeting, and if the select board would like to designate us as the purchaser of this property, we would be glad to. We would thank you very much, and then we would go about renting the property. So I think it would make it a lot easier for the town. We wouldn't obviously get another unit on the subsidized housing inventory, but we wouldn't lose one anyway. And I had a conversation today with a woman, Rieko Hayaki at it used to be DHCD. It's now Housing and Livable Communities, the executive officer. And she said that other communities have done this. I believe it's Wareham and Waltham and others. So WAHA would be very interested in purchasing it and then renting it.
Terrific. And that would be done through WAHA funds, Lou. Is that right?
Yes.
Terrific. Any questions from the board?
I have one, Marianne. Lou,
Sure.
When I read through this, was there a possibility that we would lose that subsidized housing if it went onto the fair market? Or did I misread it?
I don't think Nora.
Yeah, I can answer that. So this is a deed restricted parcel. There are 10 affordable condominium units. They all have deed restrictions, which are effective in perpetuity. So under the deed restriction, the first priority is for the property to be listed for sale to an eligible buyer. The second priority is for it to be purchased by the municipality or its designee. And the third priority is for it to be sold to an ineligible buyer. But even in the case of its sale to an ineligible buyer, the deed rider stays in effect. The new purchaser must purchase it with the deed rider provisions that requires it to remain an affordable unit, and it remains on the subsidized housing inventory. So there is no risk of losing this unit under any of the conditions, whether it's sold to an eligible buyer, purchased by the town or its designee, or sold to an ineligible buyer. The benefit obviously is having an affordable household living in the unit.
Yeah, this, unlike some of the units that Chase Estates and others, and the Westwood Glens and so forth, this one will stay in as affordable in perpetuity.
Yes, this one benefits from a rewrite of the deed riders since the days of the Chase Estates and Cedar Hill
Right.
Estates.
Thanks, Nora. Thanks, Lou. I'm all set, Marianne.
Okay, Joe, any other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion, Rob.
Sure thing. I move the select board vote to designate Westwood Affordable Housing Associates, Inc., WAHA, and as its designee to exercise its right to purchase the above mentioned condominium for a price not exceeding $249,800. Sorry about this. And subject to a new deed rider, which is in identical form and substance to the original deed rider.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Rizzoli, Nora, Amanda, Jane. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to new business. We're now going to discuss the potential release of funds from the Sidewalk Fund. I believe we have Todd Korchin joining us. Do we have Todd?
Don't believe Todd's available for tonight's meeting.
Oh,
I
okay.
could be mistaken though. I don't know if he's in the.
I vaguely remember him
Todd is
saying.
not in attendance.
Yes.
He had a conflict.
Okay. Chris, is this something you could lead us through?
Sure. Thank you, Marianne. Little background, the select board accepted a complete street funding award from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, also known as MassDOT, in the amount of $356,813. The funding was used for the construction of a new sidewalk along Downey Street from Booth Drive to Canton Street. Mr. Corchin is requesting the board approve a release of $93,607 from the sidewalk fund for funding to be used in conjunction with Complete Streets grants for the Downey Street sidewalk project. And just a little background on the sidewalk fund. The sidewalk fund currently has a balance of $93,607. With the two deposits made in the account, one in fiscal year 18 in the amount of $23,607, and that was for the Westwood Estates or Hedgerow Lane. And the other was for fiscal year 20 in the amount of $70,000 for homes at 45. This fund is used, and I know Nora's still with us, or if she's still with us, when a developer is going for the planning board and for a subdivision, if the developer is not going to be putting two sidewalks in that development, they have the option of putting that dollar amount into this fund. And that's how this fund is established, and that's why we've had only two deposits in that fund since fiscal year 18. And there are times when the planning board and the developer may have a conversation saying that maybe one sidewalk for that development may be sufficient, but there may be something more advantageous for the town for some sidewalk improvements elsewhere in the town, and that's another reason why money would go into that fund. So the dollar amount that goes into the fund is the same dollar amount that would cost a developer to put in that second sidewalk within that development. So this isn't a discount. This is the same dollar amount that's put in the fund. It's used for projects like this.
Any questions from the board? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move the select board approve the release of $93,607 in funding from the sidewalk fund for the funds to be used in conjunction with the Complete Streets grant to construct the Downey Street sidewalk.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Thank you very much. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
That brings us to a discussion on the integrated collective bargaining agreement with the Westwood Police Superior Officers Association. And we have Molly Keene with us to take us through that. Welcome, Molly.
Thank you. So the collective bargaining agreement between the town and the Westwood Police Superiors Association has actually not been integrated since the FY11, FY12, FY13 agreement. So it was signed in June of 2011, and sometimes integration just gets away from people. You sign an MOA, you're so happy to be done, you put it on a shelf and you move on. After the board ratified the FY24, 25, 26 memorandum of agreement with the superiors officers, the union, the chief, and I sat down, put our heads together, and integrated all of the MOAs back to FY13. So what you have before you today is all of that language integrated. Just wanted to call your attention to three things that were not in the MOA that was ratified in February, just mostly for housekeeping. One is updating the vacation leave to match the language that was agreed on with the patrol union. The reason for that being, if in almost every situation we're promoting somebody from the patrol union to the superiors union, so we don't want to take any benefits away from them. The same with the addition of the mental health day program. We're not trying to take any benefits away from somebody who's getting promoted. And then just a couple of minor tweaks to the detail language for consistency with administration. So I'm hoping that the select board approves this finally integrated collective bargaining agreement. One down, a couple more to go, and we'll be all set.
Thank you, Molly. Any questions from the board?
None.
No.
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
All right, I move the select board approve and sign the collective bargaining agreement between the town and the Westwood Police Superior Officers Association for fiscal years 24 through 26, and for the electronic signatures of the board to be affixed to the CBA.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call. Joe?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Thank you very much, Molly. Good work.
Nice work, yeah.
Okay, moving on, finishing up with our new business with a discussion of a temporary authorization for the town administrator and town council to sign memoranda of agreement. Chris, would you like to take us through this, please?
Sure. Thank you, Marianne. Yes, so as the board is aware, your last meeting for the fiscal year is this evening, and we still have two collective bargaining groups that we are actively negotiating with, one being the fire union and one being our SEIU group. The recommendation before the board is asking the board to authorize the town administrator and town council, after consultation with the select board members, to sign MOAs for the fire union and or SEIU between the dates of June 22nd and June 30th of 2023. This again is just for this fiscal year. Anything after this fiscal year, this authorization would not be valid and would go back to the select board. But key point, I just want to emphasize that this would only be in place if we have a ratified agreement from either or both representative groups and after consultation with each member.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions from my colleagues?
Not from me.
All right. Entertain a motion, Rob, when you're ready.
Thank you. All right, I move the select board authorize the town administrator and town council to sign the memorandum of agreements with Westwood Permanent Firefighters Association Local 1994 IAFF or Service Employees International Union Local 888 if ratified by the respective unions between June 22nd and June 30th of 2023.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call, Joe?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Thank you, Chris. We'll now move on to old business, and with the continuation of our annual process for appointments and reappointments of boards and committees. To remind folks, the select board office sent out notices to individuals who are up for reappointment on June 30th of this year, asking for their interest in continuing to serve. And the appointment process will continue over the next few select board meetings as more responses are received. I want to point out the following vacancies that we have, which are posted on the town's website. It includes the Dedham Westwood Water District Board of Commissioners. We're looking for a commissioner to represent Westwood, the Historical Commission, the Housing Partnership Fair Housing Committee, Recreation Committee, and the Westwood Environmental Action Committee. These vacancies will be updated on a weekly basis on the town website or as needed. And as everybody knows, our town's good government really relies on the engagement and participation of our residents in these boards and committees. So we highly encourage you to get involved and to submit an application. So we want to discuss long range financial planning committee, as we have two openings on that committee. We need to replace Joe for one, who can no longer serve on that committee now that he's on the board. And Rob, I understand that you have two candidates to bring forward.
I do. Paula McLaughlin, who has long been a resident in the town and probably well known to a lot of people because of her activities throughout the community. And then in addition to Paula, Dan Weller, who is currently the president of Temple Beth David, another individual well-respected in town, both of whom I've had conversations with and both of whom are very willing to serve.
Fabulous. Perhaps we could do a vote on that separately, and then we could do the longer list later. If that makes sense. Joe, any questions on those?
Sounds good.
That's terrific.
All right. Well, let me make the first motion with respect to the Long Range Financial Planning Committee. Just a quick question to Chris or Town Council. Should I include Tim Piffavar and Elijah Romulus on that, as they are new ex officio members as well?
Yes.
That would be appreciated.
And one more, also Chris Tapp. Chris
Very
Tapp,
good.
you got him as well.
Okay. I move the board approve and appoint the following members to the Long Range Financial Planning Committee. Dan Weller as an at-large member, Paula McLaughlin as at large, and the following as ex officio member. Oh, no, is Chris is a,
He's a member.
he's a member. Yes, he's a member. Okay. So Chris Paff as a member, and then our new superintendent, Tim Pippavar, and then our new town planner, Elijah Romulus.
Sure.
I'll second that motion, Rob.
Thank you, Joe.
Terrific. Roll call, Joe,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That's terrific. Great work, and welcome to Dan and Paula and our new ex officio members, and thank you for your service in advance. So continuing with respect to boards and committees, you'll recall that at our last meeting, we deferred our discussion about the Pedestrian and Bicycle Safety Advisory Committee. So we'd like to have that discussion now. In the meantime, we have received a communication from the current chair, Michael Kraft, who has made a recommendation regarding the committee. And I just want to put this out there for everybody. He's suggesting that they're going forward, we have staggered terms, which would include 3 members with a 3-year term, 3 members with a 2-year term, and 2 members with a 1-year term going forward from June 30, 2023. So that is Mr. Kraft's suggestion, but I want to open it up for discussion with my colleagues.
Would that is that the rolling, or is it more like the way FinCom works, where you're appointed for 3, but there's 3 people in that 3-year appointment, and then the next year there's another group of 3, and then next year another group of 2. I'm just want to make sure I'm clear on how that rolling was planned to work.
As I understand it from Mr. Kraft's message, that before last year, everyone was on a 3-year term. And so in order to preserve the members they have, but have staggered terms, he's suggesting that going forward, they do it in the fashion that I outlined. If anyone else has clarity on that, please let me know.
I do not.
Okay. Well, the suggestion specifically that Mr. Kraft has made is for a 3-year term, Maria Constantini, Steve Olenoff, and Keleda Closey. For a 2-year term, Kate Wynn, Michael Tinsley, Michael Kraft, and for a 1-year term, Tom McShane and David Atkins.
Kate Wynn would only be a 1-year.
Yeah, point of order.
Board. She's a planning board recommendation from the planning board liaison. Am I correct with that, Nora? She's a 1-year appointee. They appoint
They reappoint every year when they reorganize.
Correct.
So she'd have to be moved to the 1-year term.
Got it.
It's just one person down to the 1-year term. It's not monumental.
Got it. With that amendment, I set forth that slate for your consideration. And possible motion.
All right, I moved any questions, Joe?
No, we just have to resolve your first question, but we can work on that down the line.
I know, I understand the intention behind it is it's so that there are staggered end dates to their terms.
Yeah.
So, and then I assume we will get back onto 3-year terms, but so I follow the logic that Mr. Kraft put forward, so I'm fine with it. So I move the select board appoint or reappoint individuals to, well, am I doing this just for the Ped Bike Safety Committee, or are we rolling this into the subsequent appointees? Because I need a big drink of water to read that list here.
No, I would, because you're staggering terms and perhaps changing terms, I would take that motion individually, Mr. Gotti.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I move the select board vote to appoint the following members to a 3-year term on the Ped Bike Safety Committee. That would be Steve Olenoff, Michael Kraft, and Kelly Closey. And the following to a 2-year term, Maria Constantini, Dave Atkins, and Michael Tinsley. And then the following to a one-year term, Tom McShane, and then Kate Wynn as the planning board liaison.
I'll second that motion.
Just a point of order, if I may, here. What you read is different from the list I have from Mr. Kraft.
Why don't you read the name
Yeah.
and the intended term, and I will make the motion to vote that slate.
Point of order, Madam Chairman.
Yes.
Will you withdraw your motion, Mr. Gotti?
Motion withdrawn.
Thank you.
All right. For your consideration for a motion, Mr. Gotti, is a 3-year term for Maria Constantini, Steve Olenoff, and Enkeleda Closey, a 2-year term for Michael Tinsley and Michael Kraft, and a 1-year term for Tom McShane, David Atkins, and Kate Wynn.
So moved. I move the select board vote that slate to appoint to the Ped Bike Safety Committee.
I'll second the motion with the question. Mary Ann, what about the ex officio members? How do we handle that?
We can do that after, Joe.
Okay. You got my
can-
second. Yep.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. So Joe, your question is with respect to ex officio members.
Yes.
I'm not aware that any recommendation has been made in that regard. I mean, this is an advisory committee to the select board.
It's okay if you appoint all the ex officio to a 1-year term, and then we clean that up next year.
Okay.
Right.
I don't have a proposal for folks to be appointed as ex officio members.
So I will move the select board appoint the following members as ex officio to the Ped Bike Safety Committee. Christopher Coleman, Town Administrator, DPW Director Todd Corchin, and 2 representatives from the Westwood Police Department, Francis Baker and or Steve Conley.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. And now, Rob, I advise you to have a long sip of water as we move on to the list of other folks who have been proposed for appointment or reappointment.
All right, I move the select board to vote to appoint or reappoint the following individuals to the following boards and committee. To the Building Survey Board, Fire Chief John Deckers reappoints. To the Cemetery Commission, the following as reappointments: Tom Aaron, Chris Coleman, Brendan Ryan as Chris and Brendan as ex officio, and then a new appointment of Michael Walsh as a member. The Commission on Disability, reappointment of members Connie Rizzoli and Mary Sethna. Conservation Commission, reappointments of member Elias Ferris and reappointment of Karen Skinner-Catrone as ex officio. On the Housing Partnership and Fair Housing Committee, reappointment of the following members: Lou Rizzoli and Abraham Glazer. New appointments as member Joan Courtney Murray and Amanda Wolf as housing agent, and then Chris Coleman as ex officio, and then Joe Privatera as our select board liaison. We've already covered the Long Range Financial Planning Committee, so I'm going to skip that, as we have both covered the Pedestrian Bike Safety Committee, so I will skip that. Bringing me to the Westwood Environmental Action Committee, reappointment of member Maria Constantini and Tom Philbin as ex officio. And finally, on the Zoning Board, reappointment of member John Lally.
Is there a second?
Please don't tell me I was on mute the whole time.
I'll second the motion. Sorry.
Roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Terrific. Thank you, Rob. Well done. And thank you to all our folks who have just been appointed and reappointed, and thank you for your service to the town. With that, we'll move on to approval of our regular meeting minutes from June 5th, 2023. Are there any edits or additions to the minutes? Hearing
Not for me.
none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
All right, I move we approve the regular meeting minutes from June 5th, 2023.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call, Joe,
Aye.
Rob.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That carries. We will now turn to public and press. And we'll not seeing anything. Oh, I did see something here. We've got a message from Fran Fusco, 20 Pine Lane. What is the timeline going forward with the operational and feasibility studies? Are the consultants actively meeting now? And what is the next date for a deliverable after the July 12th presentation? Will there be a fall town meeting to move this Station 1 project forward? So I'll try to answer this as best I can. With respect to the operational and feasibility studies, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be discussing both of those with presentations from our consultants at our July 12 meeting. And presumably, we will be discussing a plan going forward after we've had a chance to fully vet and understand those reports and to have all of our questions answered with the benefit of public input. And then with respect to will there be a fall town meeting, we have not yet had a discussion, much less a vote with respect to a fall town meeting. There's also a comment from Kathy Wallace, 283 Farm Lane. Thank you for posting the Westwood Fire Department operational study on the town's website. I understand that parts of the location study are not publicly available. However, this published report seemed incomplete. Are there any additional addendums to this study, including data or supporting documentation that the public can obtain now? I am not aware of any further information that is available. Chris, would you have anything to add to that?
I'm not aware either. My understanding is what we have on the website is what we've received from the operational study from the consultant.
We have there's a question in the queue from. Thank you. Okay. Ms. Conan, if you wouldn't mind just putting in your street number as well, if you would, that would be helpful. Thank you very much. So we've got a question from Debbie Conant, 21 Strasser Ave. Are you only allowing questions at the end of the meeting, as I do not recall asking for public input prior to motions being made? Ms. Conant, we have been taking questions throughout our meeting since the time we've been on Zoom. We do have a designated time for public and press, which is now in the meeting, but we have been entertaining questions and comments throughout our meetings. So I hope that addresses your question. I am not seeing any other questions or comments. With that, I will mention that our next meeting will be on Wednesday, July 12th, 2023 at 6 p.m. via Zoom. That brings us to the end of our agenda. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Enthusiastically seconded.
Roll call vote. Joe.
Aye.
Rob.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Thank you very much, everyone. And
A great holiday if we don't see you.
Thank you.
You too,
Safe
Pat.
holiday.